Alright, so Yahoo Sports posted this, and I believe it's coming from the Bengals Wire. But this is the 8 hardest cuts from our final Bengals 53-man roster projections. And I'll be honest with you, I love when I get to read articles like this because coming from, sports analysts slash, media, a lot of times, when they make cuts and stuff, they don't really realize like who's actually doing good because they don't watch every single play, right? They kind of just give a generalized look, like, okay, look at the roster. This guy's gonna be a tough cut. This guy's gonna be a tough cut, etc. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So starting off right away, the first player who, again, keep in mind these are tough cuts, meaning these aren't going to be guys where you're like, oh yeah, he's not going to make the roster. This is going to be difficult to part ways with these said players. Okay, Trevor Siemian. This is how I know they did not watch the preseason. Congratulations, Yahoo Sports and Bengals Wire, because clearly you didn't watch the preseason if you think it's going to be a difficult choice to cut Trevor Siemian. Jake Browning has looked good and better than him in every way humanly possible. He has shown that he is the best quarterback as the backup, for this job. And there's no reason why, you would want anyone behind Joe like Trevor Siemian. Trevor Siemian has looked awful, right? And as it says right here, you'd want a veteran presence behind Joe to take over games if needed. To a certain point, but Brandon Allen, he was also a veteran presence. And if he had to take over the job or take over the games, he wasn't going to win anything, right? It's not like I felt confident in Brandon Allen. I kind of hate this mentality in football where it's like, well, a veteran's going to go out there and play better than a guy who doesn't have experience. That's not always true. And if we look back in history of football, usually the best games slash best, players who shine are players who come in unexpected because of injuries. And that first game that they come in, they usually play really freaking good. They might not continue to look good, but they usually look good, right? This is not like Jake Browning has not played with this team in the last 2 preseasons. Yes, he hasn't played an NFL game. I understand that. But at the same time, you can't really knock him and say that he couldn't be good, right? So, this is not a difficult cut. This is an easy cut. I will call up Trevor Siemian myself and say, hey man, you looked pretty bad in the preseason. You made it so that Yoshi's numbers looked worse than they should be. Goodbye. Have a nice day. Number 2, Travion Williams. They're not going to cut him. So this is one of the difficult cuts that's not going to happen. We already know last night Chris Evans and Joe Mixon and Travion, but Travion's been hurt, that's why. But was 2 of the guys that did not start last night. And Chris Evans, yes, it looks like is going to be a lock to make the 53-man roster. Same thing with Joe Mixon. Isn't that surprising? But I think they carry 4 running backs. Listen, at the end of the day, they're going to carry players they believe gives them the best chance to win, right? That's just how it is. And yes, Travion Williams has been hurt this whole entire preseason because of an ankle injury he got in training camp. And even though he taped it up, he was not able to go out there and play. I don't think that's going to result in him now being cut from this team. They know what they have in Travion. They have seen him over the years. He's not a rookie. He's not brand new. They like him for a reason. And him not being able to participate out there is not automatically going to mean, yeah, he gets cut. It's very possible they keep 4 running backs on this roster, and it should be absolutely fine. It says right here, Williams has ultimately injured combined with rookie Chase Brown looking good, and Chris Evans seemingly hit an upward trend. I don't think that means that they're going to get rid of Travion. I think Travion will be on this roster as a 4th running back. Chase Brown's a rookie. You have to keep that in mind. He's going to have some growing pains and some growing concerns as a rookie throughout this year. Yes, he's going to get a lot of carries, but you got to keep in mind he's not going to... There's situations where he's probably not going to be in the game. And you're going to have someone like Travion or Chris Evans in there because Joe Mixon is a bell cow back. while Chase Brown is more like Travion and Chris Evans. So having that rotation is really nice. I don't think they're going to cut him. Trent Taylor and Stanley Morgan. This is the next point where it's like, are they going to keep 7 receivers? It's very possible they do, because outside the first 6, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Yoshi, Trenton Irwin, and Chuck Sizzle, then you have the 7th guy. And that 7th guy could be Stanley Morgan, Trent Taylor, Cedric Jackson, Hippenhammer, who am I missing? Carter, I forget how to say his first name, and then Kwame. One of those guys could possibly be the 7th receiver on this roster. Or it's possible that both guys leave. Listen, Trent Taylor has been a very solid piece. Him and Stanley Morgan have been very solid special teamers for this team for a very long time. At the end of the day, though, it's very possible that because how good Yoshi has looked, once Chuck Sizzle comes back and he's healthy, they just take over that special teams roles. And that's a lot of rookies are actually, that's how they get out of that, as they get through the puppet case, is because of the fact that they play good on special teams. That's why Stanley Morgan has been on this team for so long. So I don't think this is a tough cut or an intense cut, because you got to keep in mind, both of these guys, while yes, they're good on special teams, they don't really add that much to the offense. And we have new weapons in there and new players in there to get the job done. All right, next guy, Jackson Carman. Well, this would be an idiotic cut, and I don't think that the Bengals are going to cut him at all. If you, again, Yahoo Sports, Bengal Wire, I'm sure Bengals Wire has watched the preseason. I don't know about Yahoo Sports. But at the end of the day, he's looked good at left tackle. Yeah, if you look at this and say, well, if you look at the preseason, he looks pretty bad at right tackle. Yeah, he has. He really has. He cannot play right tackle. He's not a guy who can play both positions. It's actually why Jonah Williams looks so freaking amazing, because Jonah Williams has showed he can play both positions. But Jackson Carman can't. And guess what? Once they put him back to left tackle, this last preseason game / training camp, I think right here it says he did not play the entire 3rd preseason game, suggesting he is a locked, as he looked as he expected. Come to left tackle, then right. Yeah, they've been putting him at left tackle in training camp the last 2 weeks. In preseason games, he has been left tackle, and he has been looking really good. He looked like he did last year in the playoffs. He's very viable, he's a very good backup, and he's a good piece. They put him at right tackle, and he can't play right tackle. That's not really a huge problem or a huge deal. It's more or less just, it is what it is. But you need a backup for Orlando Brown. So, at the end of the day, you're not going to cut a depth piece at the backup position for your left tackle. That's one of the most important positions in football. What happened last year when Jonah Williams got hurt? Obviously, Carman came in, and he was actually pretty solid. So, again, like I said, it makes no sense for them to cut him. It wouldn't make any sense. Mitchell Wilcox. Now, this makes even less sense if you actually watch the press conferences of Coach Taylor, because Coach Taylor has made it very clear that they like Mitchell Wilcox because, first off, he knows their system, he knows how they run, he knows how they go about things, and again, they've been working with him through injuries and working his way back from injuries. Yeah, he didn't do anything last night. It is what it is, but if you watch the press conference, it's very clear that Coach Taylor talks very highly of Mitchell Wilcox and how he likes him. And guess what happens when a coach really likes a player and wants him on the team? Usually he stays on the team. We already know that the starting tight end of this team is Irv Smith, and behind that, there's really no competition. Mitchell Wilcox, he comes in, you signed him back, clearly he knows what he's doing, and behind him is Devin. Devin did not do anything in preseason. He's not special. Obviously, Drew Sample, but then you're going to keep 3 tight ends in the end. Yes, Tanner Hudson has looked pretty decent, but again, not really a guy I'm really too concerned about, and neither am I concerned about Crahan or Bowers. So, why would you cut Mitchell Wilcox? Are you going to tell me that Tanner Hudson looks better? No. Are you going to tell me that, Crahan looks better? No. Are you going to tell me Bowers No, there's no point to cut Mitchell Wilcox. Even if you want to make the, case of, Tanner Hudson, even though he missed week 2 with concussion from week 1, he had a couple great catches and he dropped a touchdown, I don't think that's going to make an argument to cut him off this roster, especially when coach likes him. Davis and Owen Carney. And I just want to go ahead and read this for context. Wilcox finally looks to pay back from an injury, but just a tad bit too late. He's been quietly a vital part of the depth and special teams of the year now, but Tanner Hudson has looked undoubtedly good. How does he look undoubtedly good? Tanner Hudson. Yeah, he caught 4 passes for 29 yards, hurdled a guy in week 1, got hurt with a concussion. Week 2, didn't play. Week 3, he did play. Tanner Hudson did play. And then he had 36 yards on 3 catches. And then one where he was in the end zone. I actually want to correct myself. Wasn't wide open. But he had the ball in his hands and dropped it. He had good coverage on him, but he dropped a touchdown. I don't know if I would consider that, in quotes, he's looked undoubtedly great. I mean, he looks like he could be a vertical threat tight end. He is 29 years old, so I don't agree with that. But anyway, Davis and Owen Carney. This is one of those situations where both of these guys have looked good. Last week, Carney and Davis had a sack each. Carney had the sack in the Atlanta Falcons game, where he knocked him out of field goal range. But these are just situations where, these are depth pieces, and you just got to cut somebody. And it sucks. It really does. Because even if they look good in preseason, this is situations where, and I don't disagree if they get cut. I'm going to say that right now. But these are situations where, yeah, these guys might end up just being, moved off the roster and moved to a practice squad. And the reason why is because, you got to cut somebody. You can't keep everybody. And really, in all honesty, a lot of players on this roster. Def Gunner, Zach Carter, Shaka, Raymond Johnson III. All these guys have looked good in preseason, but you can't keep everybody. So it is what it is. I don't think this is that tough of a cut. I would say it's like, yeah, it's just things. But overall wise, I don't agree too much with these 8 cuts, these hardest cuts ever. And I'm just going to guess here that, Yahoo Sports just reposted the article from Bengals Wire. I'm going to guess, so interesting. But, guys, tell me down below your thoughts and opinions. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.